Construction Property Committee, roll call. Rob Carmichael's here. Paul Bissonette.
Here.
Mark Eastman.
Here.
Looks like we're all here. The first item on the agenda is the Riverview Cemetery Association request for the town to consider ownership of cemetery, I guess.
Yes, Ken Foster's here this evening from the Riverview Cemetery Association. He and I met a few weeks ago where he presented some information in regard to the cemetery and some challenges that it's facing in terms of continuity of care and management of assets. And he can address the council on what this proposal is in terms of the idea of turning the ownership of this over to the town for maintenance and long-term care. Ken, would you mind coming up to the podium? We're on TV and video land, so we have to be at the microphone to...
Okay, thanks. I'll bring my goodies with me because an accountant never travels without a pencil. Thanks for seeing me. I am the treasurer and secretary of the Riverview Cemetery. And we have, just in, take 2 minutes, this has been used as a burial ground since the 1700s. It was incorporated in the mid-1800s. There's a section of old stones that we found near the original church in Bucksport Center. And when somebody bought the house lot. And that was during the 1950s. And we moved those stones to the Riverview Cemetery, not being able to determine where the burials were at all. The Riverview is the biggest cemetery in Bucksport. There are probably more veterans, more war heroes buried there than in all the other Bucksport cemeteries together. The cemetery has always been very nicely maintained. And we have been able to grow the assets. I've been the treasurer for 42 years. There was $37,000 when I took over. Now there's over $500,000. We're not poor. We're not destitute. But we don't have lot members who are interested in volunteering their time and efforts enough to manage the cemetery. We don't look for people to mow for free or something like that. That's not what we're looking for. What we're looking for is people to be able to manage things. I am now older than dirt and not even remotely interested in turning over $500,000 portfolio to some well-intentioned neighbor who is going to lose it all. Russell Harriman, 40 years ago, told me that my job was to build these assets to a point where the town would take this over. The members are not happy with the idea of having it managed by anyone other than themselves, but they don't want to have anything to do with it. As soon as we ask if somebody can do the advertising or help with getting things on a web page or something like that, there's just no interest. This year, things really fell apart. The person who was doing the mowing at the cemetery didn't let anyone know until a few days before Memorial Day that he wasn't going to do it this year. And we hired during that 2-week period, 6 different people. Most of them just didn't show up at all. But those who did worked a few hours and didn't want to do that anymore. We have been struggling. The cemetery is not pretty. We had a lady from Castine come to visit a grave there today and drove back to Castine to get her weed whacker and do her own lot. And we are challenged in that we keep these prices very low on the cemetery lots and very restricted so that somebody can't make a profit on the things. We, of course, never sell any land. The land is all owned by the Riverview Cemetery, and the right to use the lot is what is provided. When we do give that lot out, we take half of the money as perpetual care money, and the other half is capital fund money. State of Maine law regulates what is done with capital money and with perpetual care money. Capital money can all be used, but it is usable for things like maintaining the avenues, keeping the well in working order, building a shed that needs one to put stuff in, buying adjoining land for additional cemetery space. That perpetual care money cannot be used. Only the income from the perpetual care money can be used, and that is for perpetual care of those lots. We've maintained the policy for over 100 years of mowing the entire cemetery. Back when I was being paid 50 cents an hour to mow there a few years back, the Bangor Savings Bank was paying 5.5% interest on savings accounts. Now we are paying $14 an hour to high school boys, and our Bangor Savings Bank is paying 1/4 of 1% interest. But you don't have to be a very good accountant to know that there's trouble ahead with that. A few years ago, we amended our bylaws to allow the treasurer to be able to invest in things other than bylaws called only for investing in savings accounts in a reputable Maine savings bank. We changed that, and it's a good thing that we did. I would tell you the Riverview Cemetery is 2 miles south of the Orrington line, about 7 miles north of the mill on the riverside. It shares a roadway that is owned by the North Bucksport Foundation and the trustees, not the United Methodist Church, but the trustees of the North Bucksport Methodist Church. And so they are able to transfer the rights to that without getting the boys in Boston involved in the roadway. But the road that goes down is paved to the railroad track and slightly beyond. The avenues going down over the hill are like any other gravel driveway any of you people have ever driven on in your life. They're a lot better after they're worked on for a while in the spring. But it's a pain in the neck, and it is expensive to keep up the roadways. There is a gravel pit at the bank of the river. And for 100 years or so, the cemetery and everybody else in the neighborhood who wanted a load of gravel went down there and got it. Well, DEP shut that down, I think, along in the 60s. And so that gravel is no longer available, and we buy it and pay people to maintain the avenues. The trees in the cemetery, the last guy who planted any there was Max Levitt. And if anybody who's been around for a while knows that was a while. And there's one dead one right now that we will be taking down. The cemetery is not going to have any equipment to convey. The problem that we have with that, problem or blessing that we have with that, is that whole area there, everyone sees as a community project. And so the foundation that owns the Edward Airy Community Center, the cemetery uses the bathrooms and the kitchen and the meeting room at the community center at no charge, and the parking lot that is actually owned by the trustees of the church. Cemetery uses that, and in exchange for that, the cemetery pays for cutting the bushes that will grow up on the edge of that parking lot, and the cemetery pays for cutting those down. We need to have the police be able to see down in there when they drive on Route 15 at night. We just can't risk having stones turned over, and we put up with a certain amount of cussedness, but we just can't have damage done there. We have bylaws that I have copies here, like our finances. I just drew up a pro forma income statement looking at the year that the cemetery ends is currently April 30th. And so I drew up the pro forma income statement for the year that would be ending April 30th, 2021. We are asking the town to take this over as of the 1st of May in 2020. And what we are interested in doing is transferring all of the $500,000 of funds and the property to the town, and with no stipulations or regulations other than those that follow with the state law of using the perpetual care money, the income from it only, and using the capital money for capital projects that would relate to Riverview Cemetery. There's about 200,000 of there's a lot of numbers these days. Yeah, there's 202,000, or there was at the end of April, of capital money, and 335,000 of perpetual care money. When I did this pro forma income statement, it looked so bad because I wrote it up with a pencil that I didn't bring it to share with you because I did it about 15 minutes ago. It shows that if we have maintained, like last year, we had a 3.4% yield on our investments. And I think the big spenders are going to get elected next time, and so I used 4% for income. And I assumed that the same 375 hours would be needed to maintain the cemetery a year, but I assumed that it would cost the town